Happy Mardi Gras to those of us in South Louisiana and Cajun country. It is Fat Tuesday. It is Mardi Gras, the day before Ash Wednesday. And whether you find yourself today in Cajun country with family and friends at parades, or whether you find yourself somewhere else in the country, we're all together in communion, as together we are all very much anticipating the beginning of a journey which starts tomorrow on Ash Wednesday, as God Himself draws us into Lent. And we also find ourselves today in the last day of a podcast series entitled Choose to Live. And as I mentioned, both on Sunday and yesterday, it has been a privilege to be with you in this podcast series. I want to talk about two things today. The first is to invite you into a new podcast series, which starts tomorrow, and give you some homework in anticipation for the beginning of Lent. The first is that we at Christ Redeemer are really excited to introduce you to a new podcast series entitled Intentional, which begins tomorrow on Ash Wednesday. Our Lent preaching series at Christ Redeemer is going to be entitled Intentional, and the podcast series is not only going to unpack for us Monday through Saturday, the homily that we hear on Sunday, but it's going to equip us to take small steps in our spiritual life, small steps to spiritual growth. As a priest of 17 years, as a person who's heard a lot of confessions, been in spiritual direction with a lot of people, as someone who has brought my heart to the Lord and has heard other people bring their heart to the Lord, I think a lot of us want spiritual growth, but sometimes think that that's reserved for people like the saints, or we don't know what we can do. In other words, we can look at spiritual growth sometimes erroneously as this big thing that has to happen, when in actuality, a lot of times, spiritual growth happens in the little things. It's in the small steps that if we just become more intentional about taking the small steps, then we will see spiritual growth in our life. And so Intentional is not only a preaching series and a podcast series that is going to equip us, teach us how to take the small steps in the midst of practical, ordinary life, but we're going to talk about the practical, ordinary circumstances that we find ourselves in with which we need to take those small steps. So really excited about the podcast series. If you think Choose to Live is good, I can't wait for you to experience Intentional. You're going to like it even more. It's going to be better. And I think that it's going to be something that's going to really help you grow in your relationship with God. If you're interested in walking with us as we walk with you, go to our website, ctr-htdiocese.org, or find us on Facebook. And you can sign up for the podcast series, and you can sign other people up for that if they're interested in that. Which kind of brings me into an invitation for you as we anticipate Lent and as we find ourselves on Mardi Gras Day. I'm going to challenge us all to do one thing today, and that is this. I challenge you to sign somebody up for the Intentional podcast series. In other words, hey, we've been walking together now for many of us since the day after Christmas. Some of you kind of hopped on the journey at somewhere along the way, and that's great too. It's been great being with you, but you know how much you've grown from these podcasts, and imagine if you gave that gift to somebody else. So I'm going to encourage us to do two things. I'm going to challenge us to do two things. First thing is I invite you to sign up for the Intentional podcast series. I really think you're going to like it. But number two, I'm going to challenge you today to find one person in your life who you think could also benefit from some spiritual growth by taking small, easy, practical steps. Have a conversation with them today and take them to our website or our Facebook page and get them enrolled also. In other words, I'm going to challenge you to not only sign up for the new podcast series yourself, but I challenge you to get at least one other person to do it also. Now, for those of us in Thibodaux at Christ the Redeemer, I'm also challenging you to bring that person to Mass with you this weekend, the first weekend in Lent. We have a great thing going on at our church family, and I'm excited about what's happening at Christ the Redeemer because I'm excited about what's happening in your life. And Lent is a time where God can do some amazing things in our lives, and imagine the gift that you're going to give somebody else by inviting them to join you. Just ask them to come one Sunday. Just check out this Sunday. A lot of us in South Louisiana, it's just a time where people are kind of searching. They're kind of conditioned to doing something. And imagine if you were able to connect them to the Lord by connecting them to come to Mass with us. So if you're getting this podcast series and you're with us at Christ Your Redeemer, I invite you, I challenge you as a pastor to bring one person with you to Mass this Sunday. There's a lot at stake in our spiritual lives, but there's a lot at stake in theirs also. And we're in this together. And if we're going to experience the transformation in our lives, that means that sometimes we've got to step out of ourselves and invite other people into it. Enjoy the day. Enjoy Mardi Gras. Hope that you enjoy the time at the parades with the family and friends. Invite one person to the podcast series and bring one person with you to Mass this weekend. It's been a joy to be with you in Choose to Live. And until we begin our intentional podcast series tomorrow, God bless you.